You watch the hero speak. He talks about justice. He talks about protecting everyone. He talks about never giving up, no matter what. You nod along. It sounds right. It sounds like the thing you are supposed to root for. Then the villain speaks, and something strange happens in your chest. You lean forward. You listen closer. Somehow, without meaning to, you understand him faster than you understood the hero. The real answer for why this happens is far stranger than simple bad writing or edgy appeal. It has to do with how your brain has been built for millions of years to process motive. Start with a basic fact about how your brain works. It does not process abstract virtue easily. Concepts like justice, hope, and goodness are broad, vague, and hard to simulate internally. But your brain is extremely good at processing one very specific thing: want, lack, pain. A being that wants something concrete and lacks something concrete is instantly legible to your mind in a way that a being who simply stands for an ideal is not. This is where anime villains have an enormous advantage over anime heroes, whether the writers intend it or not. A villain almost always has a wound, a dead family, a betrayal, a childhood spent powerless while others held all the strength, a world that failed to protect them exactly once, at exactly the wrong moment. Your brain does not need justice explained to understand this. Your brain understands loss immediately, because for most of human history, loss was the single most important thing to track. Losing a person, losing status, losing safety meant losing your ability to survive. So when a villain says, in effect, "I lost everything and no one came," your brain responds before your morals do. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman's research on cognitive processing offers a useful lens here. Kahneman described two systems of thinking. One is fast, automatic, emotional, and instinctive. The other is slow, deliberate, and effortful. Grand ideals like justice and heroism are processed by the slow system. They require reflection. They require you to accept a framework and agree with it. But personal loss, betrayal, and specific pain are processed by the fast system. They hit you immediately without requiring belief in anything at all. A villain's backstory is almost always built entirely out of fast system material. A hero's speech is almost always built out of slow system material. This is why the villain often reaches you first. There is a second layer to this, and it involves what anthropologists call reciprocity-tracking. For nearly all of human history, humans lived in small groups where survival depended on fair exchange. If someone in your tribe gave you food, protection, or loyalty, you owed them the same. If someone betrayed that exchange, took without giving, or harmed you without provocation, your brain needed to track that violation permanently so you would never make the same mistake twice. This is why humans across cultures have an intense, almost obsessive sensitivity to unfairness. Researchers studying this trait, including economist Ernst Fair, found that humans will punish unfair behavior even at a cost to themselves, simply because fairness violations trigger such a powerful internal alarm. Villains are, structurally, walking unfairness violations. The world took something from them that it had no right to take, and your ancient reciprocity-tracking brain reacts to this instantly. The same circuitry that once kept you alert to cheaters and traitors within your own tribe. Except in fiction, that circuitry gets pointed towards sympathy instead of alarm. You are not preparing to punish the villain. You are recognizing, on a gut level, that an injustice occurred, and your brain treats injustice as something that demands attention, resolution, or at the very least, understanding. Heroes, on the other hand, are almost never given this kind of concrete injury as their primary trait. Instead, they are given values, courage, kindness, perseverance. These are wonderful qualities, but they are abstractions, and abstractions do not activate the same ancient alarm systems as concrete loss does. A hero who says, "I fight because it's right," is asking you to accept a philosophy. A villain who says, "I do this because the world took my sister and gave me nothing in return," is not asking you to accept anything. Your brain has already processed it as true, because concrete pain does not need permission to be believed. There is also a subtler psychological hook at play, something researchers call the identifiable victim effect. Studies in behavioral economics, most famously by researcher Paul Slovic, have shown that humans respond far more strongly to the suffering of a single named individual than to the suffering of a large abstract group, even when the suffering is objectively larger. A villain's backstory is almost always framed around a single identifiable loss: one sister, one mentor, one home burned on one specific night. A hero's mission, by contrast, is almost always framed around an abstract collective: protecting the village, protecting the world, protecting everyone. Your brain, wired from millions of years to respond to specific individual others, locks onto the villain's singular grief far more easily than the hero's diffuse cause. None of this means villains are right. It does not mean their actions are justified, or that revenge, cruelty, or destruction are reasonable responses to pain. What it means is something more interesting. Your brain was never built to evaluate morality first. It was built to track loss, unfairness, and identifiable suffering first, and to reason about right and wrong only afterwards, using a slower, more effortful system that requires conscious engagement. Anime villains, whether by clever writing or accidental instinct, are often built entirely out of the material your fast brain responds to first. Anime heroes are often built out of your slow brain has to work to accept. This is also why so many stories eventually try to give their heroes a wound of their own: a dead mentor, a lost home, a specific person they failed to save. Writers may not always understand why this works, but your brain does. The moment a hero gains a concrete loss, they stop being an abstraction and become legible in the same immediate way a villain always was. So, the next time you find yourself understanding the villain faster than the hero, know that this is not a flaw in your character, and it is not a sign that you secretly want the world to burn. It is a 2-million-year-old alarm system for tracking loss and unfairness, firing exactly the way it was built to fire, centuries before anyone ever drew a single frame of animation. You watch the villain speak again, and this time you understand exactly why you understood him first.